So I want to talk to you about porn addiction and how I've overcome it. And this would be the fifth year having not watched any porn. So why I did it, what caused me, how I did it, and some tips and tricks of how I accomplished it successfully and still do. Um, so first off, I am married, uh, 10 years now, and so it's kind of odd realizing now when I'm doing this that's half my marriage, in a sense of having done this, right? So 5 years now being porn free. So the first thing that kind of put this on my radar was maybe because of my own habits with pornography. I had like a hoarder kind of habit where I would, you know, I watch all kinds of porn, but I had this affinity with still images, like photo shoots. Um, and so I would find these, like there would be a model or photo shoot of her, or maybe two models, depending on what. And I wouldn't even necessarily look at every photo. I would just kind of, like a hoarder, just collect these photos. I'd save them and I put them in a Google Photos account. I think I had a separate account just for porn collection. Because at the time, Google Photos was unlimited. You could put anything you wanted in there. So I did this for years, years. Um, Probably not long after Google Photos became a thing. It's like, oh, look, easy online cloud porn storage. Great. So that was my habit. And then so time went on, and I don't know which came first in this event, but at some point, years later, I would gone back and kind of reviewed this collection of porn that I'd made. And it was interesting because Google Photos arranges it by date, right? So you literally have a timeline of your history of all the stuff you saved. And so you can get a 30,000 foot view of your little porn collection. And it was interesting to me because I could go back when I first started saving things, and they would be like fully dressed models, even just pictures of pretty women, right? Fully dressed. And then it would escalate to lingerie or bikinis, right? And then nudes, obviously, and then intercourse, sexual acts, oral sex, more graphic things, more extreme things, you know, I don't know how to describe it, more hardcore, right? It would just get more and more hardcore as I went on. And I could see this progression over the years of just what interested me. And then, well, the other thing that kind of keyed in with this was one day I was watching porn, right? It was probably on RedTube or Pornhub or whatever these things are. And it showed you like suggested videos, like what to watch next. And the suggested video was bestiality, uh, and I think transgender sex, right? It was chicks with dicks. I'm not into any of those things, okay? But seeing this whole high elevation view of this past of porn I had and seeing it progress and then seeing these suggested videos in front of me, I kind of stopped to think like, wow, you know, like, is this what's next? Because I couldn't go back to day one. I couldn't find satisfaction in these old pictures I had where they were still wearing clothes. I needed the stuff where it was like explicit oral sex, close up, hardcore intercourse. Those are the only things that would get me excited, right? And so I made a connection there. It's like, my God, like, am I going to need bestiality or is tranny porn? Is that the next thing, right? It was insatiable. It was an insatiable desire, which meant there was no satisfying of that thing, right? I was always going to need the next thing. I was going to need more of it. So that's the day when on my radar of like, I don't want to do this anymore. This looks like a problem, right? Or maybe not necessarily I want to stop, but I'm like, ooh, wow, I should be careful. This could get weird, apparently. And the algorithm obviously shows that wherever I was in my hierarchy of porn interests, apparently other people had gone down that next road of clicking on bestiality and transgender porns. And maybe it was just out of curiosity. I don't know. Somehow the algorithm for others had made so whatever I was watching meant that was the next thing. That's the next escalation. So I said, whoa, let's pump the brakes. So some time went by, and I'd also become a Christian. I'd always been a Christian, but I was born again, I guess. I had, as an adult, come back to my faith. It's another story. So I was kind of in a moral hard place where, I had to be honest with myself, be like, hey, this is adultery or fornication. If Jesus says if you look at that woman with lust, you've committed lust, or you've committed you've committed fornication in your own heart. If you look at her with lust, and if I'm having sexual gratification, looking at these women, and I'm thinking about them, right? I'm fantasizing about them, like what I mean, like they be on my mind. Those images, maybe not them personally. I don't really care about them personally, but the image of their face, right? As opposed to my wife's face. And it's not like my wife's ugly or out of shape. She's very beautiful. But I think it's easy for any marriage. Like, that's the biggest fear for people to get married, or was for me. It was like, oh, but what about the sex? The sex is going to, it's not going to get interesting. You have the same person after a while. That's like a big worry for probably many people. At least it was for me. Even if it's a very attractive person, it's the same person, right? So that's going to be a challenge, especially after we're already tainted, especially when we're already surrounded with all these images, right? We give it a deluge of media and entertainment, stimulation that no one would really experience in a normal life. And so there was the moral aspect of not wanting to do that. Felt like, hey, this could be a sin. The other aspect was, like I'm saying this, maritally, it wasn't a problem yet. In fact, my wife, she didn't have a problem with me watching porn, It wasn't like a very open thing, but it wasn't like a secret. And, to the point where, like, might even try to encourage her to watch it with me in the bedroom, but she wasn't really interested in that. But she didn't care if I did, and she didn't see a problem with it. But I saw the problem, maybe not from a moral aspect, but just for a marital aspect, so say if I came home after work, she's not home yet, I'm in the mood, right? And I'm watching some porn, and I expend that energy. Well, guess what? When she comes home that night, even if she's in the mood, I would turn her down, right? Or I wouldn't initiate sex because I've already been satisfied, right? I didn't care about it anymore. So, like, it robs you of that energy. And so I saw this early on, even though she didn't see it as a problem. I saw it, like, because I saw the potential for it to be bad, where, oh, wow, this could grow even worse. And in a long-term lifetime marriage where it's already a challenge to stay sexually active for many people, right? I saw the chance for disaster. I said, well, I need to nip this in the bud now. Even though we're early on in our marriage, I saw the potential for failure or disaster. And I didn't want that. I wanted to have a sexual marriage, right? That's because it was one of my fears when I got married. And so I'm not going to let that happen. And so I was like, wow, well, I can't keep doing this. I keep expending this energy on somewhere else. And then even if she's in the mood and wants to initiate, I wouldn't receive her. I might go to sleep or something. So I just, you can imagine in your own mind how that would go badly, whether you're married or not. You just see the time. It would just build and build. How many more nights where she was interested and I was like, no, I'm not in the mood, right? Before it's just totally dead. And then try to reignite that. That's very hard. See, it's much easier. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's much easier to just keep the flame lit. Okay? So those are my motivating factors. Okay, there's a secondary factor would be my production. So same thing, I would come home, that energy would be spent. And so if I had some projects going on, they didn't get done that night, right? I was done. I'm probably more in the mood for a sandwich. It wasn't happening anymore. And so I saw this potential to be just less productive, and I didn't like that. So those are the whys. That's why I decided, hey, I need to stop watching porn because I have this insatiable desire that's just never enough, right? And I could sit here for hours on end. I'm just never going to be happy, never going to satisfy me, right? It's very similar with all kinds of stuff, drugs, alcohol. Very similar road. So I had given myself a limit, right? And I might have cheated a few times, not on my relationship, just as far as my goal, which was, hey, I'm going to watch porn once a month. And I focused on that monthly thing. I didn't really care about the 30 days part, right? Where I'm counting days in between, or more like counting down, like, oh, in 5 more days I can watch some porn, right? I was more, because that way, I didn't really plan this, but this is just the way it happened, because of me cheating at it, which would say I gave myself a month limit, but maybe I had done it twice that month. Well, then January was toast. Okay, so I would whether however many days I had left or not was out of the question. I was like, well, I gotta wait till February. Well, February would come around, and maybe I, didn't make it to the end of February, right? But say I didn't make it all the way to the end of I didn't get that 30 days in, I'd still could punch that card in, right? Where, I used my card, so now I gotta wait till March. See what I mean? And so I just wasn't so focused on that 30 days aspect. I just kind of kept focused on that once a month thing. Where, obviously, masturbation along with porn, I'd permit myself. Because I knew I couldn't quit cold turkey. I knew this was impossible. Well, I did this for, I think, 18 months. 12 months, 18 months. And then it got to the point where, because of this kind of loose goal I had of just this monthly thing, rather than counting days, where it came in, because I didn't have a set, like, on the 15th every month, that's my day. It wasn't like that. It was just, I just looked at the month as a thing, and it was somewhere in that box. As long as I kept it in that box, okay, cool. Well, the thing is, though, what if I come up on the beginning of the month, right? Well, I would start to honor that rule and just really wait for that next month. So that made it me get through a 30-day stint, right, till that next month. Well, because I wasn't focused on that, I might go into that second month to the 15th or, the second week, first week, before I realize, I get my other card. I can punch another card, another hole in my card here. Well, then it's like, wow, I made it 40 days, right? Or maybe I made it to the end of that month. So I was like 60 days. Amazing, right? I'm just saying things like that would happen. Well, it came down to, I think, if I made it through unknowingly, I made it through, like, I just meaning like one of these 2-month stints, just, inadvertently. I made it through November and December without having watching porn, and I didn't notice it until like January 15th of the new year. And then because I'd made it those 2 months, and even when I realized it later on into the third month, it wasn't because of a craving. I was just like, oh wow, I made it this far, and I figured, well, hey, look, I realized this. I'm not even craving it. I just kind of realized it, and I made it that far, and it was kind of so easy. I didn't really think about it. So I kind of made it since it was close to January. I said, hey, maybe that's gonna be my New Year's resolution. Maybe this is the thing. This is the year I'm gonna do it. And it was an easy resolution because I already started it. You know what I mean? So it wasn't really a resolution in that sense because it was already like, hey, Marty, I'm just gonna. That was like an easy goal, right? So I decided, okay, look, I can do it this year. Maybe I can go this whole year without porn, and I did. And I'll tell you, this is year 5 without porn. Now, was it easy? No. Like, I think the hardest thing to to fully recover is to get the images out of your mind. Because you're going to have those images burned in your mind, the sexual images, and it's going to cause cravings. It's going to cause desire. It took a long time. It took about all 3 years to kind of fully cleanse my mind, right? Or I don't have any of these things like in my RAM anymore, right? It's in there somewhere. I could dig them up, but they're not just jumping out at me and causing a sudden urge to come up. But I learned in that time, well, there was triggers, right? There's things that would trigger those urges and maybe bring me to those images faster. Okay, I had to eliminate those also, and that could be something as simple as a thumbnail on a music video on YouTube. I had this particular DJ I liked, and he always just had. That's not why I liked him. I just liked his music, kind of like some trance techno kind of stuff. And so he always had these thumbnails and videos. Like it would just be these just stock footage, I guess, of these models, photo shoots and bikinis and stuff. And it was just very attractive girls, just even in the thumbnail, right? So I didn't even click on the video yet, but it's there in my feed. That was triggering thoughts. Like I just seen that body in that bikini, right? And this is, well, apparently socially acceptable stuff because it's right on YouTube. I guess it's age restricted. I don't know because I was signed in if it would be age restricted or not. But either way, I saw it. That would be a triggering image to me. So I would have to, unfortunately, even though I liked the guy, his music, I would have to, hey, do not recommend channel. I just had to get it out of my purview. Okay. And that was true for long time. Anything else that came up, you get these TikTok trends of girls. I think I've showed it on here where they pop up in a bikini, like be in baggy clothes and then show yourself in a bikini. Like I don't know who makes these trends. It's probably some sick bastards. But anyways, they put it together. That is triggering. Okay. Anything can be because we're sexual beings, so it doesn't take much, right? And that's what a lot of these OnlyFans girls are taking advantage of these men that are simping for them. But anyways, that's some of the things I did. Also, I would allow myself masturbation, but there's a caveat to it. Either I was just going to do it as if it was a medical procedure, like you got a cramped muscle, basically. That's the way I started looking at it. So if the urge came up, I would still allow myself to masturbate. I didn't necessarily put a cap on it at all because I had, as far as like how often I could do it per month or anything like that, because I had already made the big leap of like, hey, look, I can make it this whole year without porn. So I kind of had to give myself something where I had a free for all. Well, yeah, you can masturbate all you want, but I didn't really have to put a limit on it because I gave myself a caveat, which was, it's not going to be, you're not watching porn while you're doing it. So it's a lot less interesting. And I still had to be like, okay, well, how can I, as a Christian, masturbate and feel good about myself? I figured there's nothing wrong with it because you probably still have to do that for prostate health and things like that, and I wasn't looking at other women while I did it. So I would either think of my own wife while I did it or just think of nothing and just try to get it done as soon as I could. Just because I knew if I masturbated that urge for that porn, if it came up, would be gone, right? And that's how it works. So I kind of had to control my environment, give myself some kind of vice, and I just guarantee it. If you're masturbating, like without watching, you don't have some other stimulus, you're not going to do it for very long. Not like in that short span. I mean, overall, you're going to give it up. The other thing I would do, since I'm married, is if the urge came up, I would just say, hey, I'm just going to give it to my wife tonight. I use that as a motivator. It's like, hey, well, I guess if I'm excited, that must mean it's time to lay with my wife. You know, and this might cause a lot of uh, my people might get upset with this because they're like, oh, I watch porn with my loved one, and that might keep it spiced up for you. But as a Christian, and not from a moral aspect, just from like being interested in God's order and how He designed things for us, I think back about Adam and Eve, and it's like, wow, like what would that have been like? You had no porn, you'd never seen a woman before, right? It's just you, literally only you and her on the world, and I wanted that, because uh, because of porn, entering when I entered into marriage or any relationship, there's going to be pressures now in the bedroom that wouldn't have been there. Like you wouldn't have had these ideas of what to do and things you wanted without having that outside influence, as opposed to if you were just in the garden, right, organically, just discovering sex for the first time, just you and her, right? Like, wow. Like to me, like, what I will never know what that's like because I've been tainted, right? Um, I could try to get as close to that as possible. But that's kind of one of the things I wanted to achieve. Um, and I had to block those things up, but it's kind of hard because it's already over for me. And I had an affinity for those that were able to achieve it. I think it's impossible in this world. I think it's just so much around us, even in movies and stuff. The rating systems, it's all it's all the beast system, you know. But I did see that as that could cause potential friction in a marriage if you come in with these preconceived expectations, and they don't deliver. Well, that's going to cause friction. So had I not had those preconceived expectations, like there'd be no friction there. You know what I mean? And that's why I wanted to go for, as far as how I wanted to live and love my wife, especially because I'm going to be with her for eternity. Well, of course, eternity isn't heaven, but I am married to her for life. Um, that was my goal. So, if you're not married, I guess you'll be still masturbating. But I guarantee, if you do that without looking at stuff, you're not going to be sitting there lighting the candles and turning on the jazz music, right? You're going to get bored and go out and do something more productive. Now, the problem of where I've failed in this is not because I've, uh, fallen off the wagon. No, I'm still not going to watch porn. Um, and back as far as elimination things go, of triggers, uh, not just like the thumbnails for certain videos, right? Bikinis and stuff would trigger me. Um, Even seeing a attractive woman, jogging on the road, right? So I would have to do things like I would, say I see her like a mile away. Oh, so she could be unattractive for all I know, but they're wearing some kind of pink thing. It's a chick, and so you're already, your Cro-Magnon mind is like, oh, ugh, woman, and so you want to look, right? You have every opportunity, right? They're not going to see you, so I would just make the decision a mile away of like, nope, I'm going to keep my eyes on the road. And I just force myself just to keep looking straight when I drove by and let her just pass by my peripheral vision. My buddies all in the truck might be, ogling out the window, but I've learned even when it comes to seeing ladies in the street, the fantasy's better than the reality. You see that long hair from behind and then you see her face and you're kind of like, ugh. So it was always a letdown. So I knew I wasn't the probability that I was missing something was very low. It was more probable I wasn't really missing anything, and my contentness for my wife would, just blow that out of the water. But I can lose that contentness for my wife if I allowed myself to go into the world and follow these things. Now, where I failed is there are repercussions because I've eliminated this, right? It created a void And I've just replaced that void with screen addiction, which is YouTube. It would have been Facebook also. You know, you sit there just kind of creeping on someone else's barbecue photos that you never been to, but you can spend all day just looking at other people's lives for some reason. Like that's very addictive. Luckily, I was banned from Facebook for reasons I won't go into now. Um, but without Facebook was YouTube, and I still spent a lot of time on YouTube, and I'm not happy about that. So rather than sins of lust, I have sins of laziness, right, that I'm repenting for and trying to deal with. Um, would I rather be addicted to YouTube than porn? Yes. I'd rather be addicted to YouTube than porn. Arguably, though, I think I may have been more productive when I was watching porn. you know, but I was still watching both. I would watch porn and YouTube, so it wasn't like anything changed. But now that the porn's gone, now it's like 100% YouTube. So it's kind of, am I spending the same amount of time? I don't know. Possibly, maybe more. But now that's my new challenge, right? To get rid of screen addiction. That's some of the things I will. What am I doing against that right now is just fasting, and so I'll just try to pick a day. Um, I usually fast for God. I would do it with food, but you can fast with God, fast for God with anything. So that could be simply, hey, I'm not going to watch YouTube all day, which is very difficult because in the age of information, there's a lot of times you need it. And even on my fasting days, I would have to turn the YouTube on to get some information because sometimes it's just way more efficient rather than trying to read. Not you probably get more information with reading, but as far as just getting your answer, you can get it so fast with a video. You can skip to it, you scroll around, but it creates another opportunity for distraction, and that's what I'm trying to get over now. And how am I doing that? And that's this right now. So I try to watch less and produce more. So I feel better about myself anyway if I'm doing things like this. And that's where I'm at. So I hope that helps. I don't know if it will. I think it will because it helped me. I just kind of haphazardly came upon it. Just set some small goals. You reach those goals, you create new goals, right? You just keep moving on. You give yourself a vice or something in exchange of the thing you're taking away. That kind of makes it easier. I just hope you pick a healthy vice. And I would advise against YouTube or some other screen activity as a vice. But that's hard to say, Now it's a fight against depression for other reasons too. And social media definitely does not help with depression. I can tell you that. But I'm here, still alive, even though I got a bunch of dumb stuff to deal with in my life. Apparently, it ain't killed me yet, so I got nothing better to do than just keep dealing with this dumb stuff. And that's my life. So, good luck to you. God bless you. May you be blessed in the name of Jesus Christ.